All right, we're live.
All right, great. So my name is Paul Tagliaferri. I'm the chair of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals. It is now past the hour of 7 p.m., May 28th, 2024. I'd like to welcome everyone to our first hybrid meeting. Hopefully this goes well. This open meeting of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals are allowed to participate either in person or remotely. The Act allows for the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals to meet in person and remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream or the recording of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. So before we begin, so I just want to recognize the service of two members who have not reappointed to the board. Mark Rutan served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for the past 21 years from 2003 to 2024. Fran Backstrand also served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for the past 12 years, from 2012 to 2024. Fran had also served as a chair for several years and is currently on several boards in town. Both have had an unwavering commitment to our community and have played an important role on this board. They have ensured the balanced approach to decision making, and we appreciate their time for the last number of years. On behalf of the ZBA, I just want to recognize their service and community and thank them for their efforts. And we obviously have some new faces as well. So I just want to introduce very quickly, Jacob Jones currently works in the legal profession and has an extensive background there with degrees in law and biotech. John Marr works in commercial real estate with degrees in business and finance. And then Jeff Grabowski, who has served as an alternate for the last 3 years, is an attorney and works at the local law enforcement, local law firm. All right, so we are going to go to election of officers first on the agenda. So I think we have a chair, and usually we nominate a clerk. You know, I've been the chair for the last 2 years. I'm happy to serve one more year, and then we'll officially call it chairmanship. But I don't know if anyone.
Mr. Chair, I'd love to hear from Brad or Susie, but unless they want to jump in and interrupt me, I would move that the board reappoint Mr. Tagliaferri as the chair.
Yeah, I second that. Yeah, I have no objections. You've been doing a great job, so no objections to you continuing for one more year.
Okay.
Jacob took the words right out of my mouth.
All right, so Jacob Jones made a motion. Brad had seconded the motion. We have to do roll call vote still?
No.
No?
It's just
So
hands.
raise the hands. All right, okay, it's unanimous. And then for clerk, I believe Brad is the current clerk. I'm not really sure what the.
It's a vice chair. So if you are not there, they are the one who
Pretty
runs
much.
the meeting.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Brad again for clerk vice chair.
I will second that. So Susie made a motion to nominate Brad as the vice chair. I seconded the motion. By show of hands. All right, it's unanimous. All right. All right, so first up on the agenda is the consideration of a petition for Gaiety Pellerin for a dimensional variance to construct a carport within the side setback at 17 Mayflower Road, map 95, parcel 89, located in the residential C zoning district and groundwater protection overlay district area 3. Ms. Pellerin?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to just kind of give us like an overview on why we're here.
Okay, let's see. So I built a carport over my driveway. I've gone through this process previously. Got an approval, but did not get the building permit pulled before the variance expired, I believe is the issue. And quite honestly, I did not know that I needed a building permit, and I didn't get any list of anything leaving here after the zone, well, actually, it was online. After leaving the zoning meeting with a checklist of things that I needed to do. So when I asked in the meeting if, no, actually Fran Backstrand asked me if I needed a building permit, I answered no, because I didn't think it did. And nobody said anything, so I thought I was good to go, and I went ahead and put my carport up. So I'm back again to try to do this the right way this time. Hoping to get a little bit more direction once I get this part covered, and the variances for a 4-foot. I think it's supposed to be 15 feet from the property line, and I encroached by 4 feet, so to go down to 11. That's what I'm requesting the variance for.
Okay, so you're looking for 4 feet of relief because you're 11 feet from the side setback.
Yes, yes.
I guess first question for Bob. What does the applicant need to do if the variance is approved today to move this forward?
If the variance is approved today, excuse me. Obviously, decision has to get written, needs to be signed by the chair. And Laura can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a 20-day appeal period that we have to endure in case somebody wants to appeal it, which is very, very rare that happens. Once that appeal period is up, she needs to get a certificate from the town clerk stating that the 20-day appeal period has passed, and then take the whole thing to the registry and get it filed with a barcode stamp. At that point, she's going to need to apply for a building permit, which we actually already have. I can renew the building permit if nothing has changed for the physical build out. And then it's just from there on, it's just a standard build out. She will need to provide a certified as-built, which is part of the zoning requirements at the completion of the project, to make sure that the relief that she sought is the relief that she will be enjoying.
So I guess it's my understanding that carport's already there, right? From
Yes.
when the variance was last approved in, I think it was 2018.
2020.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you know if that 4 feet is the actual amount of relief? Like, it's not like 4.5 feet?
I'm positive because it's on my driveway. I measured from, I measured for where I think the line is. I don't know exactly, but yes, it can't be, I don't think it's a half foot. If it's off, it might be an inch or two, maybe.
Okay. All right. I just want to
Yeah,
make sure that if you're not coming back in front of us again.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Does anyone on the board have any additional questions?
Mr. Chair, I didn't see anything in the record from any abutters, unless there's one here. So far, we haven't received anything from any abutters, is that right?
I have not.
What does that mean? Something else?
No one's complaining.
No.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask a question of the materials themselves? Is metal, it's a form
Yeah.
of metal, so it's not combustible,
Right,
okay,
yeah.
and it's not fully enclosed.
No, it's only 2 sides.
Mhm.
So,
Mr. Chair, I just have a comment. I just want to say I appreciate you coming back in and just making sure you're doing this the right way. And so you get a lot of credit for that. So thank you.
So this is a public meeting. So this is only Bob and Owen. That's on the Yep.
Nobody's got their hands raised.
Okay, so this is a public meeting. So at this particular time, any members of the public who wish to make a comment or ask a question can do so. If you are online via Zoom, you can right click and do the raise hand function to make a comment. I don't see any hands raised or members of the public who wish to make a comment? Are there any additional questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, so was the structure built within a year of getting the first variance?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point. So Mr. Grabowski actually wrote a letter that we had town council look at sort of the process that you're going through, meaning like, because you actually enacted on the variance, right? Does that mean that you basically have exercised the variance right? But I think his conclusion, correct me if I'm wrong here, was that because the variance wasn't filed within the year.
Registered.
Registered, yeah. Okay, that this process is the appropriate way to do it, so.
Okay, it does not say on that letter anywhere that there's a time frame. Just so everybody is aware of that.
Yeah.
That would have been helpful.
Yeah, okay. Are there any other?
One other question that if the applicant isn't comfortable sharing, that's okay. It's more of just a curiosity of the process. I am wondering how it was raised to the attention of the applicant that she needed to go through this process, if she's comfortable.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind. So, we got, our back deck taken down and got stairs added. And when it wasn't Bob, it was the other guy, Chris, maybe, came to, do the inspection, he saw the carport and he was like, I don't remember seeing that in the information, and he said it was a illegal structure, I think is the way he framed it. So that is what got me to reach out and start over.
Nothing else.
Okay. All right, well, I don't have any other further questions or comments. I entertain a motion to.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing for 17 Mayflower Road.
Second.
Made a motion, seconded by Mr. Jones, by show of hands. Oh. Okay. So unanimous show of hands to close the public meeting. Okay, so we'll vote on this, we'll deliberate probably towards the end of the meeting, and then we'll vote on it at the end of our meeting, and then you don't need to stick around though if you don't really want to.
Oh, all right, so, okay, and then I'll get something and I'll
Yeah,
get
so
that
you
letter
can-
in the mail from
Yeah,
you.
I can give you a call in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right, thank you. Oh, I have a question, Bob. You said, bringing everything file with the registry. The last time I did it, I was able to mail it. Do I actually need to show up and get something different this time?
Good question. I'm not sure if you can mail it in or if you have to be physically present. That's a detail I don't have an answer for.
When I filed that, you guys should have it in your paperwork somewhere that it's stamped that it was filed with the registry. Is that an acceptable response back from them when I mailed it?
As long as it's recorded, we don't care about the method. So
Okay.
it just has to have the book and page number.
I believe
for
it
the
did. It had a little
decision.
stamp and some information.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That's sufficient.
And it costs money to get that file, by the way, everyone didn't know that the first time I mailed it in either, so I'm learning all kinds of stuff. If that helps anybody, I don't know if anyone else is next, but anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so next up on the agenda is consideration of petition submitted by BD Homes LLC for a dimensional variance for insufficient area for a two-family home to be constructed on the property located at 343 Hudson Street, map 30, parcel 18, in the residential C zoning district and groundwater protection overlay district area 2.
Good evening. I'm George Pember. I represent the applicants. The applicant actually, BD Homes, and both of my clients are here tonight.
Okay.
With us, so that they're available to answer any questions that you might have. Basically, what we have here is a piece of junk. It's an eyesore right at where Hudson Street and Solomon Pond meet. And it's been there for several years, and it causes a lot of angst among members of the public. Why isn't something being done there? So I want to give you maybe just a quick bit of background on it. A couple of years ago, this property was acquired by another of my clients, who had the idea that he would transform from a single family house into a two-family house. And he would use the same physical structure and just tweak it a little bit here and there, and add a little bit to it, and he'd have a nice two-family house. I think Bob was skeptical, but it seemed like anything was better than what we had there, and so the ZBA granted the variance. And that's where I dropped out of the picture, but my understanding is that the previous owner got into squabble with some people who were financing his property, and it never moved forward, and the variance lapsed, and that was the end of that. So my clients have purchased the property. They are reputable builders. They have good finances backing them up. And what they propose to do is to create a two-family house on this location. We're here before you tonight because we need two variances. The property is about a little over 21,000 square feet. And in order to do a two-family house in the residence C, you need 30,000 square feet. We don't have that. And the second variance we are looking for is in order to do this two-family structure in a groundwater two area, you need 40,000 square feet, and we don't have 40,000 square feet. We're not close enough. So those are the two variances that we need. Now, the site is kind of, as it is now, it's kind of a dangerous site. It's a pretty heavily trafficked area. And the road, the entrance that's currently there is, it's not safe. It's not as safe as it could be, that's for sure. The building is, in my opinion, and the opinion of, I think, the town engineer, it's too close to the street, which interferes with sight distances. What my clients have proposed is to move it back and change the entrance and exit so that it's a safer egress and exit from the property, and there's more setback, so the viewing, the sight distance is much better on this property. I think I'll stop at that point and just see if folks have some questions.
Okay. So I think what's before us is, or at least specifically just the zoning board of appeals, is a variance for granting relief on both the size of the lot. Currently the lot is 21,344 square feet. In order to build a two-family in the residential C district, you need 30,000 square feet. And then it is also within the groundwater protection overlay district area 2, which requires 40,000 square feet. So I'll also mention that the use of a two-family will be going before the planning board if it is approved by our board, right? So from a special permit, so if we approve the variances today, the next step of the process is the applicant goes to the planning board where they will seek a special permit for use, which is two-family, which is a allowed use in the residential C zoning district with planning board approval. They'll also seek a special permit with site plan review. So the planning board, excuse me, will do the site plan review part of the process there, and they will also do a special permit with groundwater protection as well. So I guess my first question, just to kind of give some sort of framework here, do you have sort of, or do you know what the current impervious surface is that exists there today?
I don't have that information.
Okay. Do you know what the new impervious surface calculation is going to be?
Don't know what that calculation is.
Okay.
Was in consideration about the groundwater. I think the important thing here is that we're proposing recharging on runoffs, and I think there'll be a pretty good improvement in the recharging. Because
Okay. Lori or Bob, do you guys have any comments on this application, I guess?
Well, I did have a couple of questions that I forwarded to you in my comment letter. So my expectation is that should you get your variance this evening, then you would be able to supply that information at the next stage before the planning board, because that's important information
yes,
that they're gonna be interested in.
be happy to do it.
So, of course, I did supply a comment letter to the zoning board of appeals. And, one thing, of course, you know, the existing, property is, in my opinion, in a slum and blight condition. So I, for one, would be very much interested in you, doing something with the property. I think that right now it's a negative for the neighborhood. It probably decreases the values of the abutting properties, so I am anxious to see you
So are we.
do something. So that's pretty much all I have to say. The property would be served by public sewer and water. So oftentimes the desire to have a larger minimum lot size is because of the concern about fitting both a well and a septic system, because obviously you don't want to have those on top of each other, so you want to have a good distance between the two facilities. But in this circumstance, it's already accessed by public water and public sewer, so I do not have that concern. I do like the fact that they are mitigating their stormwater. If this were a single family development, chances are they would not mitigate stormwater to the extent that they are proposing to do so for this project.
So I guess just to off of that, if this was a single family project, they would not be required to come for variance for the groundwater?
So the groundwater, they would still need a variance because a single family also requires a minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet.
Okay.
So they do not have 40,000 square feet, so in order to build something, they would need that.
Okay. Yep, quick question on the mitigation that you mentioned. I don't need a detailed answer, but could you describe what kinds of mitigation you're talking about? I can't tell exactly from the materials which way the water would naturally flow onto or from the property. Are we talking about landscaping changes? What kinds of mitigation would?
Yeah, a lot of landscaping changes, so the overlook over to the back deck, that's a retaining wall there, so basically, water would basically go down to the street regardless.
So they are proposing an underground stormwater facility, which you can see in this grid pattern right here.
Aha, that's what I was looking for.
So that would infiltrate the stormwater from the roof. And then there's also a catch basin on the other page. There's a catch basin here. So it's also capturing the flow from the driveway.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Mr. Pember, I know, you were the attorney on the initial application, right?
I was, yes.
Okay, I can't remember, did we discuss why the driveway, the single driveway wasn't on Overlook and why it was put on Solomon or Hudson? Is that discussed?
I think there was some discussion about that because the boundary line is, it's not totally clear. We have had, my clients had the title searched and they feel very comfortable with their document. It's comes from kind of a pleasant background.
And then another question, in the initial application, it was, each unit was gonna be 1,700 square feet. Now it looks like it's gonna be 2,100 and change. Any particular reason, for the increase in the size of the units?
Increase.
Yes, the reason, sorry, the reason why I increased it was because to comply with the neighborhood, because they did some down on High Street, there's some townhouse they built in around 2,100. And since we're gonna need appraisal when we decide to sell each unit, would be good to match what's on the neighborhood. So we don't wanna overbuild, but we don't wanna underbuild in either way.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we're doing taking down the building there, remove the location, it's not like it was before, we're gonna keep the same structure.
Mhm. Okay, and then that leads to my next question, so you guys are looking to sell these units, not rent them?
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, thank you.
So I'll also note, the letter we received from, the former town engineer, Fred's letter. So one of his, recommendations was sort of the sight lines as you're coming down, say Solomon Pond Road. And I just want to confirm, so the project that we're currently looking up on the screen, that there will be sort of the sight line for drivers coming down Solomon Pond to see sort of like that turn onto Hudson Street. Right, there's no plan to sort of put bushes there or any sort of structure there.
No,
And
and
covers the blind spot, so.
yeah, so that would be the disaster, so we don't want to do that. And we're happy to see that in the final decision that you make. If they have that language, that's not a problem.
Yeah, Joe?
Is there any signage that you're thinking about putting along Solomon Pond there to indicate a private, like a blind drive or the like?
Yeah, we can always add signage. There's no plan to it, but we can always add. That's why we moved the driveway towards that.
Yeah.
You get some basically, you can actually see where they're going, because the corner, it's so that people drive a little fast on that corner, so. Yeah, I moved the driveway to a more straight line.
If I understood, I don't remember which letter it came from, but I'm just trying to make sure I have my understanding right. When the site plan was originally permitted with the variance, do I understand correctly that at that time, the plan was to use the existing footprint of the building, and then later on it was discovered that for reasons that wouldn't be feasible, and thus, since you were going to change the footprint, you thought this would be a better option, which including the additional little bit bigger size. Is that, do I have that all right?
Well, the initial proposal a couple of years ago was to pretty much use the structure that was there, but frankly, it's junk. And it wasn't feasible to do that.
Yeah, I believe Bob was like, the more you kept digging in, it was got worse and worse.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's what Mr. Brown said.
Yeah.
You guys started adding stuff that shouldn't be, so.
Mhm.
I think that's.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, Bob?
Thank you. Yep, just a little background history. I don't know how clear it is to everybody in the room. Again, excuse me. This started out as a single-family home that was undergoing renovation. As the contractor at the time kept digging, discovered that there is no way he could recover any of his money by keeping it a single-family home. So he kind of stopped in his tracks and went through the process of dividing it and planning it into a duplex. The duplex that was approved at the time, I think was going to use a fair amount of the existing foundation, which is not a good idea, because the foundation is the foundation, believe it or not, is worse than the standing structure if you dare to take a look. So bottom line is that, they were granted the variances and the special permits for a duplex, but it was originally a single family. If you go back far enough, I think they may have used it as a two-family, back in the 50s and 60s, but the records are pretty fuzzy at that point. But yeah, the original was the one that was originally bought. Single family, started renovating it, was gonna take too much money. Decided to try for a duplex, and that's what they were granted, but everything just expired. As Mr. Pember was saying, there was some discussion and argument and unsettlement regarding, the financing at the time, and who owned what and what needed to be done. I was with the developer at the time on literally a phone conversation every couple of weeks, because I wanted to just take the building down and be done with it. And time just went on. So I think, taking the entire structure out, starting new, moving it back so that it has some distance from the road, it improves the sight line with only one driveway. Understanding that the title issues with the back lot near Overlook Park have been resolved. There seems to be a contractor with enough brains and talent and enough money to be able to give this do this project right. I just wanted to make things clear for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Are there any other questions, Susie?
I was just wondering how big the basement space is, the unfinished basement space.
It's usually around 800 to 750 square feet
Okay.
For each unit?
for each unit. We use most of it for mechanical stuff, so.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. If you are online, you can use the raise hand function. And if there's anyone in the audience that wants to make a comment, if you could just introduce yourself, Chris Stone, do you want to, can I do it here? You can. Hi, Chris Stone, if you could just unmute.
Can you hear?
Yep, if you could just please state your name and your address.
Chris Stone. I'm actually living in Maine currently, but I own 19, 20, and 24 Overlook Park. My brothers also own property there, and my aunt and uncle and cousins own property there. I'm not sure anybody has been paying attention. I don't know that any of us knew that it was changed previously by the Zoning Board of Appeals. I don't understand why we have zoning regulations and then we are so easy to just decide not to use them. In the past, historically, people went to the Zoning Board of Appeals because of a hardship. These folks, they might be great developers. I don't know them. This is nothing against them. But they have purchased this property for way less than a lot would cost in Northborough these days. So they currently don't have a hardship. I agree with Mr. Pember. The building is ugly. It was built in the 1800s. It's falling apart. It probably has an old stone foundation. It was never a two-family. The Pulsifer family lived there for years with extended family living there. I think the mother originally lived there when I was a child, and then their grown children lived there. So it always had extended family use. It was never a duplex or a two-family. I think that we've got minimum lot sizes for good reasons. And I'm concerned about the lot size being diminished while the building footprint is being enlarged. That looks like a massive building they're going to put there. The one that's being currently built up on Hudson Street is way oversized for the neighborhood. And I have a feeling it's about to happen here. The one thing I agree with is getting that building out of there because it looks so horrible. But I don't understand why we have to go from a single family to a two-family. I do think the visibility is going to slightly improve on that corner, which is really dangerous for all of us that are entering and exiting Overlook Park. Overlook Park is a private road. We maintain it, we plow it, we pave it. I don't believe that property, well, that property has never participated in any of that, so I think there'd be some issues with maybe them having a curb cut on Overlook Park. I'm not in favor of this duplex. I am in favor of somebody building something nicer on this property, but I just sent a quick email a little while ago. I really think as a town, we need to start standing behind our zoning. I'm currently living in a place where I can barely touch a blade of grass, and there aren't any variances given for anything. So I'm not sure why we're going down that path. That's just my opinion. I don't approve of this, and that's all I've got to say. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Thank you very much for calling in. I guess just a follow-up question. So the current layout of the property, does it have cutouts to, or curb cuts to overlook? Like, is that how you would get into today?
Now there's trees that covers most of that corner lot right there, and the house basically sits right on that corner. That's why we plan on moving it part of the driveway for access, and people can actually see the driveway and actually see the other side of the road since it's a corner lot.
Okay, so the only curb cut on the proposed project is on Solomon Pond Road?
Yes.
So on the existing conditions plan, it is showing this, there's a curb cut to Overlook, and that there's 2 curb cuts on Hudson Street.
On the existing one, right?
That's the
Yeah, that's the
existing.
That's the
existing
existing
plan.
one.
Existing.
So the proposed only has the 1.
Sir.
Just my name's Al Stone. I live at 16 Overlook Park. That's my sister. The concerns we have is that, like he said, we don't want this building to encroach on the corner because they get killed trying to get out of there. There's now people come around the corner on 2 wheels. The other thing, the original home had an in-ground pool, which is back there, but I think they just collapsed it and buried it. And the previous owner started dumping trash there. And the town told him to clean it up. He moved it to the far corner and buried it. So I don't know what's buried back there. I'm not quite clear on where this driveway is going to come out.
Basically right at the end of that lot. The curb cut, basically it's right around that corner, which is dangerous, right where you got a big tree right in the middle.
Okay.
So that's the curb cut.
That's the catch basin. So this is the edge of pavement right here. So there's a berm, and then there's the edge of the other pavement, the other side of the driveway. The driveway is here.
No, all right, so it's going to be over next to 7 Solomon Pond Road.
Correct.
Thing you ought to know about the catch basin, it's a drop inlet, which is an antique catch basin. It goes across the street into this lot and just ends. And nobody ever did anything about it when they put that house there. And then, I don't know where the water goes, maybe it doesn't go anywhere. It's probably full of dirt. So I doubt that it works. But, you know, I'm glad to see that the corner is going to be clear.
Yeah,
Because
that's gonna be mainly just green. So.
when the last guy that tore the house apart put a dumpster here, and we finally had to get the police to make him move it because he couldn't get out of there. And as for duplex, I don't know. It seems like it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, that's our goal, to build something safe and presentable to the town. Especially pushing as much as we can. That's why we're here to ask you, so we can push it as much as we can, so people can actually see around that corner.
I can show you what the duplex is gonna look like. If you just bear with me a minute.
Mr. Chair, when we're pulling that up, I just want to reiterate to everybody, what we're deciding on tonight are the variances, not necessarily the duplex itself.
Yeah.
That will go in front of the planning board. So when we make our decision, it's just strictly on the variances. It's not, has nothing to do with single family versus double family. I'm not disregarding what Ms. Stone said regarding duplex, but I encourage her to call into the planning board meeting if she has issues with the duplex.
Yeah, so this isn't about the building side, this.
So unlike that one that my sister mentioned up on Hudson Street, these garages are gonna be in the front of the house.
Front of the house, yeah.
It's like the one on Hudson Street, they put them on the end and the house is 150 feet long.
And that,
So
that's,
we were concerned about that.
yeah, we planned on that too, while looking at the property existing now. It makes more sense putting the garage right up front. On side to side, so.
Before I came to the meeting, I talked to the neighbor that's directly behind the property. He's been in hospital, so he couldn't attend. That was his concern, it would be too big on the lot, but looking at it, it appears like it might not be there,
Yeah, it's gonna look nice afterwards, I hope.
you know.
Yes, she mentioned about hardship, it's proved that a single family is not feasible. So there will be a hardship, you have to go back to single family.
It's 40,000 square feet anyways to build, so.
Do you want me to put this slide up, whereas
Kind of hard to
It's okay.
navigate this
Sorry.
way, so I'm sorry about this.
Just
Yeah, so-
the gentleman asking where it would be and the footprint, I thought that showed it pretty well.
So that's
Are there any other questions for the applicant from members of the board? To Brad's point, what's in front of us is really about the size of the lot and the variance specific to that. Right, the use of the duplex is a planning board decision. The site plan review, which goes into a lot more detail with regards to catch basins and the design and how it looks. And I know that you've already been in front of design review multiple times.
Yes. Which was a good thing, we learned a lot.
So, and they obviously have a number of comments and recommendations, but it's really targeted to the planning board because they're the site plan review. But I'm glad to see that you guys have met with them and that you are willing to listen to their feedback.
Yes.
So I think Chris Stone, I see your hand is raised. Do you have initial comments or?
I was looking for a clarification. I heard your comment that this is not a variance for a duplex. I realize it's because the lot size is not adequate for a single family home, and it's not adequate for the groundwater regulations. It's grandfathered as a lot for a single family home. I'm not sure what this ZBA meeting is for if you're not granting a duplex on this lot. I would think it would be grandfathered for the size of the footprint that's there now. That's all I have to say.
Has the property been used in the last 2 years?
No, it's basically unsafe to even go in it. But for you to rehab it, it's gonna be right where it is. It's gonna be blocking the corner regardless of it.
Are there any other additional comments or questions from the board? I'll do one more if there are any other additional comments from the public at all at this particular time.
No, thank you.
Okay, and then for the applicant, if there's anything else that you feel that the board should know.
No, I think we're good, thank you.
Okay. There's no other comments or questions? Any motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing for 343 Hudson Street.
I'll second.
Brad made a motion to close the public hearing. It was seconded by Susie. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. Thank you.
No, I have clarification. Thank you so much for coming.
All right, so I think we can. Let me start with 17 Mayflower. I guess what I would simply say is, I was on the board when granted the relief 4 feet back in 2020. This was sort of a paperwork error. It's already built. Denying the variance would mean you have to take it down. I don't see any harm. There was no neighbors that called to complain with the fact that it's already been there for the last 4 years. But this is, that's what your comments on that.
Yeah, no, I agreed with you there, Mr. Chair. In memory of Mark Tan, I would give 5 feet of relief, so they don't. They come back
I was trying
for
to,
something else.
I was trying to flush that out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
for
have to
those-
come back in front of us.
Exactly.
Okay, the
For those extra
advertising fee.
inches.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, for Mark,
Yes.
just give her 5 feet.
Better than that.
Does anyone else have any other comments?
Just a general comment, things I was listening for was, being new to this board, in both of these cases, but let's talk about Mayflower. The board has already made a decision in the past about this case, so I'm looking particularly, has anything changed that would change the logic that the board should use today? I haven't heard anything that would change it, and so while we're not bound by our prior decision, I'm highly deferential to the prior decision of the board, and I haven't heard anything today that would suggest changing it. The only other comment that I had, and I read the email from council, it seemed a little more unclear about the consequence of not recording within the period. But that's why I suggested as an alternative reason. I mean, in this case, the shape, soil condition, topography factors, they're not strong. They probably weren't strong in the first case, but they were strong enough to grant the variance, and I would have granted in this case too, for the same reasons. But I think also a secondary factor that weighs in favor of granting the variance in this case is that in my view, the variance didn't expire because it was exercised within the period, even though it wasn't recorded. Now it's a closer call. Some judge may disagree with that, but I don't think that's a clear answer to that. I would just suggest adding that as a second reason. But that's just my opinion, but I'm leaning in favor of granting the variance just for the same reasons it was originally.
Okay. I guess just like as a sidebar, Lori, do you know if there's like variances that have been granted that haven't been recorded?
I'm sure there are, so typically what happens is, of course, once the decision is rendered, we file it with the town clerk's office, then they give the original and the certificate of no appeal to the applicants. I believe they pick them up from Michelle. And then Michelle gives copies to the building inspector. And then he's making sure that the decision has been recorded. I believe that's part of your building permit process.
Yes, it is. Once all of the activity through either the planning board or the zoning board, excuse me. Basically, I don't make a move with issuing a building permit until I get that recorded certificate from the courthouse. And actually, in the decision, it says this variance or this special permit or whatever does not take effect until it has been registered at the courthouse. So that requirement that it doesn't exist until it's recorded is actually in our own bylaws. And it's actually written in just about every decision that's been issued by a special permit granting authority.
That's good to know. In light of that, I would withdraw my, I haven't read that bylaw, but I'll take inspector's word at it and strike my proposal to add that other reason for this one, but that's good to know. Because the other thing I was thinking about is, as a practical matter, the reason you have a recorded variance is because if you have if if the variance is of a nature that it wouldn't be shown in a structure or something right away, an abutter or someone buying a property will have no way of knowing that my neighboring property has a variance, just by looking at it, from the public way or whatever, unless it's recorded, which it should be. So anyway, just to uncomplicate things, which strike my suggestion to add the other reason. Thanks, thanks, Bob.
Yeah, just my 2 cents. My understanding of how it works is that, the variance needs to be exercised within a year. As a prerequisite to that, it needs to be fixed by having recorded it. So you can exercise it without recording it, based on my limited research that I did. If you don't record it within that year that it needs to be exercised, then you're out of luck, then it lapses. So.
Can I ask a question? As far as the variances go, they're all transferable with sale, right? So there's nothing that we can put in here to basically say that it's conditionally sold, that the additional structure needs to be.
Variance to stay with the land.
It stays with the land.
Yep, special permits. We typically will put conditions that,
Yeah.
if it's like a use or something, we will typically throw in like, we approve special permit for you, or whatever the applicant is. Variances, and this is where it gets a little harder for a board to sort of like control to a certain extent. Variances, because they do go with the land, they are very broad. Especially for you have a lot more criteria. Okay. Does anyone else have any other comments in regards to 17 Mayflower? All right. I think there is.
Barry, would you entertain a motion?
Sure.
I move that the board grant a variance to allow an encroachment of 5 feet into the 15-foot side yard setback for the placement of a carport per section 706.030 table 2, density and dimensional regulations table 2, table of density and dimensional regulations in residential C district of the Northborough zoning bylaw on the property located at 17 Mayflower Road.
Second. So Jacob made a motion to approve the relief, and Brad seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous decision. Okay, great. So just for, I know that Lori had sent out a draft decision, so for newer people on the board, typically, I think it was my feedback, is that I'd like to have like some form of the decision, like somewhat written, because there are a lot of moving parts in there, so that as we go into a meeting, we have sort of that framework there. And then of course, like if things change, if we want to add conditions, there's nothing hard and set with these draft decisions. Obviously, we can vote yes or no. We can add or take away conditions, but to sort of have that framework, how it's worded, of course, we can wordsmith it how we like, but just for a frame of reference, I've asked that we get some sort of a draft out there to us prior to the meeting, which is why Lori sends it. So it's not meant to be, she thinks we're going to approve it or deny it or whatever. It's just to get sort of something on paper so that we can actually tangibly read it and sort of help us to sort of be more efficient and move things along. All right, so the next one is 343. So I think, I guess I'll go first. So my general thought on this is, what I would say is our scope is somewhat limited in the fact that our variance is for the lot size. A lot size in this neighborhood of 21,000 square feet is small, right? It's probably roughly a half acre. There's not a lot of things that can go on a property that wouldn't require a variance, given the fact that it is in the residential C zoning district. It is also in the groundwater overlay district area 2. So in order for the property to be sort of rehabbed and rehabilitated, like they're going to need a variance. It hasn't been used in years.
At least since
Yeah.
2017, from what I could see in the records.
It's been a
Right,
while.
so any sort of like existing variance, whether it's regards to single family use or whatever, has probably most likely elapsed, so. Whether it's a single family home or whatever, they're gonna need a variance to do something with the property. I like the fact that they, you know, we're not looking at it from a site plan, but it is a very well thought out plan. They've gone in front of design review, there's a lot of things, because the next step will be obviously the planning board. There's a lot of things that I think make me feel comfortable approving sort of the lot size variance and the progress of this project, that granting the variance would be acceptable for me. But just in terms of the size, that's my sort of my general thoughts on this project, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and this is something that we didn't grant back in the day, it just lapsed, to your point. Like the fact that something was being done with the property, the relief of the line curve there, is also helpful, that is a dangerous intersection. So, I think this is a win for the neighborhood. And it does match another duplex right around the corner on Hudson Street as well. So this isn't something that is just out of the blue. It's not going to fit with the neighborhood. It will fit with the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to your point, as far as the lot size and the dimensions of the lot and the odd shape of the lot, I think the lot will still sit there and be blighted. One way or the other, as you had mentioned, and so to grant a variance here would help expedite the process, if that's improving kind of the overall marketability and tax base for the town, so.
Yeah.
I would agree with your conclusion on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll also say that the shifting of the building too, because I think the last time they were in here, you know, it was very, the presence of the project was to rehab the current footprint of the building, which I think was probably, you know, a touch aggressive, given the shape that it's in. The fact that they're sort of level setting, coming up with a new plan, moving the building away from the corner to improve the sightline, I think is an improvement. You know, you can't really control the car speeding by, you know, that section, and you know, I've driven down there a bunch, and there are cars that speed. You know,
Probably sped down that road.
Oh, yeah.
Not as much as King Street, yeah. But yeah, I just say, it's just one of those things that you're improving the sightline to make it easier for people to see, you know, maybe it makes it. So yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and going from 3 curb cuts to 1. I think it's a great idea.
Right. Okay.
And I think that last point from my view, it really, this is a uniquely shaped lot, going to the factors in the law that governs variances, like this. If this weren't, it's not just a corner lot, it's not just a cutoff short corner lot, it's a corner lot with a road that curves with pretty high speed traffic around it. So I think that the shape of this lot is unique, different from all the ones around it in a way that I think does set it apart from other lots in the neighborhood that do put it into the realm of things that would qualify for this variance, aside from the fact that this board already decided that, and I don't disagree with the prior decision, or at least I haven't seen enough information today to justify reversing or reconsidering the decision that was already made, even though I would if I saw something that justified doing that. So I do think that there is some uniqueness to the shape of this lot, that including being not only a corner lot, but on a curve of a road with pretty high speed traffic.
Yeah. And I'll just also mention I think Lori made the point earlier, you know, it is on town sewer, right? There's gonna be no septic there. They're putting in like stormwater filtration, so like looking at it from the lens of groundwater, and how are you protecting it? It's like they're improving the lot with the stormwater filtration system. I mean, they'll need to figure out wherever that one thing goes.
Swimming pool.
Yeah, the pool that ends in the middle of the street, I guess, but We'll let Bob figure that out.
With the missing pool.
Was, oh, yeah.
It's a missing swimming
pool
pool,
and then buried garbage.
Or trash.
Seems to be where the unfinished basement.
Um,
It's not our problem.
Yeah, so I just, yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Yes, would note that Lori did send around an email, or a letter from one abutter in support of the project, in which she noted that, you know, the bad condition of, property for however many years now, she's happy that, this project is hopefully going forward. And other than the limited objection from Ms. Stone, there doesn't appear to be any other position.
One other thing, Mr. Chair, yeah, in that letter that I think, I don't know if it's in the record for this case or not, but the Carol Callahan, 10 Solomon Pond Road, that was the abutter that was in favor. Well noted. Another observation of mine, I think the original site plan was done by the ZBA because it was around the time that our town law was changing to our planning board was the permitting authority for this.
Yep.
Seeing nods. It's on, so we're clearly not the permitting authority now. If we were, I almost would say this is possibly a case where a good cause exists to extend the prior permit approval, but that's beyond the scope of our decision. I understand though from talking to our planning director that the variance is a 1-year expiration with a possibility to extend it for 6 months if they ask within the 1 year. So I don't think there's any escape route for the variance that it is expired. But one other point someone made about, even if it were single family, it would still need a variance because it's the same requirements. I actually wonder, and I don't know that we'll get an answer that's clear. I couldn't find a clear answer. But would the existence of a sewer system to replace essentially the septic treatment system go to the soil conditions factor that we're to consider as a possible transfer variance? Because the reason I asked that is because the 40,000 square foot for the groundwater zone, as I understand and have at least been told, and I think I've read it in a few places, one of the reasons for the space is to accommodate a well and a septic field. That need doesn't exist when you have a sewer connection, which we're told this applicant using. So I don't know how we apply that logic in deciding whether or not to grant a variance for the square footage, when the square footage is mooted partly by the connection to the sewer. On the other hand, there may be others who say, well, all the lots are required to be 40,000, this one should too, septic or no septic, and I would understand that argument as well. So whether or not sewer connection can qualify as a soil condition, I think is an open question. I would consider it to be a soil condition. That would be an additional reason to grant this variance. But at any rate, I think the shade is enough in my opinion.
Okay.
I think maybe cleaning up the garbage, emptying the lots.
Yeah, which is probably part of the soil conditions now.
I mean, I would go along with everyone else about the unique shape and the fact that residential C district, like this is unlike other cases that have come before us. This is like the land of duplexes for our town. I'm leaning in favor of granting this for these people. And I do drive by this area and a lot. I love the mall. Still go to the mall. I like going to the mall. I like taking kids there, shopping. But I drive by, that place a lot, and it would be nice to see something go in there. And then all the questions that I did have about the building can now be the planning board's questions to find out about, so.
I think some of the questions that you would normally bring up, like
Yeah.
stuff that you can really sink your teeth in. Something like
Yeah.
And I mean, talk out of turn, and I really appreciated the commenters here, Ms. Stone and the other gentleman who was here raising those concerns, and those are very good concerns, but I also do think the planning board would be receptive to hearing those.
For sure.
deciding conditions for the site plan if they are inclined to approve this development, so heard those comments.
Yeah. I just wanna say it's not really related to the case itself, but I'm so happy at how the technology was working. I know Fran and I, like, that was a lot of our misgivings about becoming hybrid, was that we wanted callers to be able to call in, and we wanted people to be able to see the plans online, and we wanted people here to be able to like participate and see the plans up on the screen, and everything works like wonderfully tonight. So it made me so happy, so I just want to say that too.
Cool. I don't have anything else to add. Someone want to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to grant a variance of 8,654 square feet from the 30,000 square foot minimum lot size required by zoning bylaw section 7-06-030J, and to grant a variance of 18,654 square feet from the 40,000 square foot minimum lot size required by zoning bylaw section 7-07-010D to allow the lot area of the subject site the development of a two-family home. The applicable property of 342 Hudson Street.
Correct, any motion?
I'll second.
John seconded the motion. All those in favor? Alright, so unanimous decision.
Yeah.
This one's written out for you. Nice.
Wait for someone else coming forward.
Yeah.
Makes it easy for us. All right, let's see, so next up, discussion of the 2025 zoning article process. So I just want to put this on the agenda because I wanted to just kind of talk for mostly the newer members, in the zoning bylaw process that sort of the planning board goes through, and sort of try to posit that, you know, as a zoning board of appeals, we do have some level of expertise with Northborough zoning bylaws, with all the things that like some of the issues that, you know, we may see with applicants, and to kind of see if people wanted to sort of, or if the board wanted to sort of try to, I think the thing for me that I always struggle with is at what point in the process that the planning board goes through does the zoning board sort of provide feedback and help, right? We can do it in the beginning, it's sort of the idea generation phase. We can do it sort of like feedback once they've already come up with the ideas. But I think for me personally, I think what we shy away from is sort of like when it's actually time to make a decision for the bylaws that get changed. Meaning like whatever they're gonna change, the zoning bylaw, so the ZBA doesn't really have an opinion, right? Because we're the board. If you have a personal opinion on something, you go to town meeting and you raise your hand and you vote, or you speak, and you know, I know that some of us have done this one way or the other. And so this is just an item on the agenda to sort of think about. We don't need to make a decision today, but as the planning board starts their process for next year, zoning bylaws, how we as a board want to be involved in that process, right? Whether or not we want to suggest, you know, zoning bylaw changes to them, to just, you know, sort of throw it to the big pot of ideas that they have. Do we want to get involved once they've already done all that and they sort of identified things? So that's kind of it. I mean, it's just kind of like talking about the process. Where do we want to be involved? I don't know if anyone has any ideas to start with, almost like a homework assignment for our next meeting to say, okay, think about it, and then how do we as a board want to be involved with that process? So that's, yeah.
So usually around the August, September timeframe is when we start talking about some ideas that we might have for the next town meeting. So you know, certainly if you want me to be your conduit, so if you have certain ideas that you would like, I'd be happy to share those with the planning board. Usually I come up with my own ideas of things that I think need to change. Bob also comes up with his thoughts on what needs to change, so I think they'd be open, especially if it's very early in the process. And then it would give time to actually develop whatever it is that you're interested in, and having the conversations about, you know, how it should look.
And then we normally go in like January.
Yeah.
It's like normally
Yes.
after the holidays, we normally join we join like before the planning board meeting starts. We'll go early, like at 6 o'clock, their meeting starts at 7. We go over whatever they're gonna present, we kind of go over the wording with them and what we think and if things could change or how we think if it came up to us or if an applicant came up to us, like, oh, that might not work or and why.
I think this
So it's
last,
usually January.
Yeah, so it's right before we advertise the public hearing, and the planning board have been very open to the comments received from the ZBA. So you're dealing with one whole side that the planning board is not dealing with, so I think they respect the ZBA's, you know, thoughts, and there were a number of changes made to that highway business southwest based on comments from the ZBA, so.
yeah, I was gonna ask, my recollection was that the MBTA bylaw changes were a lot of the focus of that joint meeting, if I remembered it correctly.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about that. The two big ones that we did were the highway business southwest and the MBTA. And at that point, we were really struggling, the planning board, with which properties to include in the overlay. And so the ZBA provided input to help them focus.
Okay, yeah, so just think about it for next meeting. You know, we can start with, you know, the idea is part of, you know, fixing bylaws and trying to streamline certain things or whatever. And then we can kind of discuss it going forward. Figured we can have this conversation now as they start getting into the fall, the planning board starts going into that process. So.
Just so you're aware, the next meeting, I'm actually on vacation, so Bob is gonna be holding down the fort. And we have not received any applications for next month.
Oh, so is it already closed there?
Yeah, when's the deadline?
It's around this time, right? We haven't heard of it.
Well, we have
It might be
applications.
today or tomorrow.
We don't need to first. That's for sure. All right. Anyone else have any other questions on the article process?
It's May 20th, it's a deadline.
So we already passed.
Sorry, Bass.
We can figure that out. Consideration of minutes from the March 26th, 2024 meeting.
I actually noticed an error a few minutes ago, I think I had the incorrect date at the very top. Not in the header, but I think in the body, I might have,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have it now in front of me, I don't have a copy, so I might have. Covered on myself.
Because it should have been March. Oh, okay, gotcha.
I already made that change.
I guess Jeff, you could vote for these, right? 'Cause you were, Susie, Brad, and Jeff, you guys have a chance to read the minutes.
I did, I
Yes.
didn't notice the date change though.
So there is just one,
Everything else.
one change of the date, second one.
So do you wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the March 26th, 2024 meeting minutes.
With the small change.
Yeah,
With this small
Michelle's
change from
change.
Michelle that she just made from the date in the first paragraph.
Second.
Susie made a motion, Jeff seconded the motion, all those in favor? Yeah. So that was unanimous approval. So our next meeting dates, so June 25th and July 23rd. So I would say if we have no applications for the June 25th meeting, Unless anyone objects, we can probably skip. But if anyone,
Mr. Chair, I don't have any objection. I will physically be in Washington State and happy to appear on a hybrid meeting by Zoom if we have one that day.
okay,
But I certainly wouldn't object to skipping it if we have no business, so.
okay. I would say that if nothing comes up in the next 2 weeks, or we can chat about it. Or no one has anything that's important. At worst, it would be a remote meeting. And not an evening person. And then at best. Or maybe worse. Yeah, it's very hard to do. All right, does anyone else have anything for for our meeting tonight?
Just want to remind everyone, June 30th is the first concert in the park. We have Playing Dead kicking off our concert season, and we'll have food vendors and a face painter. And face painting is free. Food vendors will support our local businesses, and it's at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Ellsworth McAfee Park.
So if I could just, maybe you guys have all done this, but Bob and Scott or whoever's listening, how is the audio? Because I noticed we don't have individual mics, so we must all be running off of camera mic. Bob, how is the audio?
The audio is pretty good. It sounds a little bit roomy, but it's certainly understandable. It gets a little bit broken up when more than one or two people are speaking. So it's probably just a matter of getting used to. Where is the microphone that's in the room?
It's on top of the TV.
Oh, okay. Actually, it sounds, for that kind of microphone and that distance, it sounds pretty darn good. I can hear everybody from across the room. I can hear everybody up close. I can hear the applicants. Like I said, when it gets a little too noisy, or if, 2 or 3 people are talking at the same time, it gets a little bit broken up. But aside from that, I think it's working pretty good.
Okay. Great, thanks, Bob.
Anytime.
All right. Anyone else have anything else to add? I'll entertain
Sure, I move to close and adjourn the meeting. Whatever we do with these meetings, what do we do? Yeah.
I second.
Motion made to adjourn the meeting, Susie seconded. All those in favor? All right, got one in the books. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Owen.